Welcome to the Steel Birds podcast, starring your host Corey King, Harry Brockington the fourth, aka Brock. What's good,
What's
man?
going on? What's
How
up?
we
What's
doing?
up? Good, man.
Yeah.
13 days to the draft. We almost there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're getting close to it. It's gonna be a good time. Yeah. So we're gonna today we're gonna talk a little Eagles Steelers and then get into like some sleeper picks we might have, some guys we like for our teams or just in general, I guess. And then we both did some 7 round mock drafts on our own, and we're just gonna talk about those, and then our usual grind our gear segment to
Yep.
finish it off. So yeah. In terms of like recent news, the Eagles signed CJ Uzama yesterday. He is I think he's like 31-year-old tight end.
Yep.
He was with the Bengals for a little bit, then he was with the Jets last year. Good depth piece. Our
Right.
tight end room got a little small after why am I blanking on his name? Jack Stoll signed with the Giants. So
Right.
it's really just Dallas Goedert. And you said what?
Carretera, you have? Is he still there
Grant,
too?
Grant Calcaterra.
Carretera, yeah.
Yeah. So CJ Uzama, he was just looking into his stats last year. He was 70th ahead of 73 tight ends with at least like 13 targets in yards per reception. But he was 26 out of 73 tight ends in PFF grade, overall PFF grade. But he was 4th out of the same group in run blocking grade. So, bringing in some good blocking help, that's going to be helpful in 12 personnel, 13
Definitely.
personnel if we get into that at some point. So good signing, I guess. We'll see how it goes. And that's pretty much it. I think every day now we're just, us in the league are just waiting for the draft. So I don't think much is really going to happen.
Yeah, Steelers, we've just been having visits for like the top 100 prospects probably on their big board type of thing. There's just been speculation of us still trying to get Brandon Ayuk, which I don't personally see happening. And then, recently, as of yesterday, I guess they're supposedly looking into T. Higgins as well. I don't think the Bengals are going to part with him, and I definitely don't think they're going to send him to a rival. So, just a lot of speculation stuff until leading up to, which usually that's how it is every year. Free agency kind of dies down a little bit until the draft, and then it'll kind of pick up again. So, kind of just waiting for these last 13 days.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, if you're ready to get into it, we can just hop right into our
Let's do it.
Our sleeper picks. All right,
Yep.
Pep. Okay. You can start us off here. Let me ask, like, were you thinking a sleeper for the Steelers or just you for the draft in general? What was your approach here?
My approach really was like, I mean, I wanted to look at a player that was like truly a sleeper all around in the draft, meaning like, not a lot of fans, whether they're mega fans or casual fans, would know about these players, and then they're actually just sleepers in their sport. Like, they kind of had crazier stories, or just like guys that like kind of been overlooked that might be taken in later rounds, but they can end up making a big impact for whatever team chooses to draft them.
Yeah,
both my sleepers could possibly be drafted to the Steelers. It's not like out of position, but that's kind of how the approach that I took.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, go ahead and start us off with your guy.
Sir. Okay, so the first prospect is going to be Quantez Stiggers. 5'11", 203 pounds, cornerback, ran 4.45. He was at D2 Lane College. It's in Tennessee. And so I heard about his story just, watching NFL Network one day, and then Mel Kiper also kind of touched on his story. out of high school, he really was, a smaller guy. I think he was 5'5", ended up growing to 5'11", and kind of, um, carving out a big corner role for himself on his team, and gets a D2 offer. Unfortunately, he lost his father, and so he decided to not play football anymore. A year or so later, he ends up going into the fan-controlled football league. He kills it there, and one of his coaches had a CFL connect, so he then goes to the CFL, wins Rookie of the Year for the CFL, has 5 interceptions, did really well, and so they're trying to see how can we get this guy to get some more national attention, and so they actually were able to get him to the East-West Shrine Bowl, and so he goes there and is a standout guy. So for me, this dude is like the typical story that you see where, building and trying to, get over adversity, and he doesn't quit, he doesn't stop, and he ends up, bringing himself back into the limelight. But, for his size at 5'11", 203, he's, extremely fluid, fast. He's a violent corner. So, he comes up and tackles, plays the ball very well. So, for me, that could be a late pick for the Steelers, but I just thought his story was really like unique, a guy that
is cool.
Is, completely out of the limelight, completely out of the sport, goes to these other leagues, does well, and then, he's able to get himself back and into a draft. He didn't even get to really play college football like that, and ends up getting into a draft. And so that's kind of like a unique story that we don't really see. So that definitely was, that was sleeper, for me, definitely. And his tape was good. So I was able to watch a little bit of his CFL tape. He played for the Agronauts in Toronto. So, great prospect, definitely a sleeper. And, hopefully he's able to hear his name called in the later rounds, come April 25th.
Nice. Yeah, that's a cool story for sure.
Definitely.
Okay. I am going to talk about if I can find my notes here. There is a center out of NC State that is super athletic, and I just am gonna talk about him a little bit. His name is Dillick McMahon. I think that's how you say it. McMahon. I think that's how McMahon.
Okay.
Something like that. He is a what did I say? He's a center from NC State, yeah. And I was just looking into, like kind of like athletic players who the Eagles can kind of take a look at, and see if not necessarily be a Kelsey replacement, but just someone who could maybe develop into a player that we can have as a depth piece. And and just looking into that, I saw on Twitter this guy Josh Norris, who works for Underdog Fantasy. He actually was looking into like trying to find like a number or a stat that like was successful in terms of like determining like good pro players.
Mm-hmm.
And he noticed that centers or offensive linemen who have a short shuttle, so like the 5-10-5 shuttle,
right,
they have a 4.47 or better at the combine. 24 of those players have been drafted, and out of those 24, they started 84% of their NFL games.
Okay.
So out of that group for this year, you got Tanner Bordenelli from Wisconsin, Dylan McMahon from NC State. He ran a 4.33 short shuttle. Dominic Pooney from Kansas, Mason McCormick from South Dakota State, Jarrett Kingston from SC, and Brady Latham from Arkansas.
Okay.
All those dudes, super athletic linemen.
Right. And they're all like later round guys too. Those are not like the starter guys. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm trying to see, what was Kelsey's short shuttle? I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure it's up there. Where is it? 414. So yeah, that's fucking crazy for a center.
Right.
Yeah. So those type of stats are interesting to look at. But
Right.
yeah, that's just a guy that I saw that hasn't necessarily been like mocked to the Eagles or anything, but that's just someone who, I think could possibly have the athleticism and the skill to, be a depth piece, see if Jeff Stoutland can, turn him into a good player and,
Right.
see what happens. So I don't know if you have any, if you heard of him or saw anything on him or.
I haven't heard of him, but no, I definitely agree because obviously when you already have the athletic side, it's just like coaching at that point, and obviously if you have the size, if you're not like an undersized guy for your position, but already being athletic, it obviously helps a lot because being more athletic than everyone else is going to give you the edge. It just comes into like your work ethic and how you're coached after you already have that athletic edge on most players. So definitely, like to have that. You can never have too many linemen, especially guys that can play all over the line. So yeah, definitely could be a sleeper for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, your turn. You got another guy?
Yes, I do. So my next dude is Anthony Gold, wide receiver out of Oregon State. He's 5'8", 172, had a 4.39 40, 718 yards, 2 touchdowns on the season for him. Not a lot of touchdowns, but yards definitely there. Also, Oregon State was more of a run-heavy team. Both their running backs actually had over 1,000 yards, so that was their kind of mantra. They wanted to run the ball really, but almost having close to 1,000 yards is in that type of offense is obviously impressive. But this dude, not the biggest wide receiver, but he can run every route. Dude is, what they would say is lightning in a bottle. At any point he could take it to the crib. And so you see a lot of his kick returns and stuff as well. But the dude, you give him a screen or give him any type of space and he could be very dangerous. So I could definitely see him as a very, key wide receiver, 3 to 4, and then maybe even making his way, especially with the kick returns being different this year. He can make his way, there or even punt return. So there's definitely, a spot for him somewhere on someone's roster, but definitely going to get overlooked because of the height there. Not crazy production over the years at Oregon State, but the speed is there, and in high school, college, and in the pros, if you have any type of speed, they're definitely going to gravitate towards you, give you a chance. And so he also is very smooth and fluid catching the football. He's not just a guy that you want to just throw a screen to. He can run routes and he doesn't drop the ball. He's very comfortable at the catch point. So that was just something I saw watching a few of his games, and definitely think that Steelers want to double dip into the wide receiver pool. He definitely would be a guy in the later rounds, but someone definitely is going to pick him up, and so we'll see where he ends up going on April 25th.
Nice. Yeah. The next sleeper for me is a linebacker from Kentucky. His name is Trevin Wallace. I don't know if you heard of him.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. He he's one of those players that you could be seen as like a project because, he's 6'1", 237. He ran a 4.5, 140, which is pretty fucking fast for a linebacker. But
yeah.
He doesn't have like super long arms or hands or, only a 37-inch vert, but a 10.7 broad, which is also good for a linebacker. But, in terms of like grading or any of like the stable metrics that a linebacker should be good at, he really did not grade well. But that being said, he's one of those guys who's rising on people's boards because during the Senior Bowl, when you're in those one-on-one drills covering tight ends and running backs, he was locking dudes up. And, in that Kentucky defense, he was more of like a zone coverage guy, and he was sent on blitzes, kind of similar to what I think the Eagles will kind of use Devin White as in our defense. Just be an athlete, go run, make plays, like
right.
And then when it comes to like covering a man one-on-one, can you do that? And I think he has the speed and the athleticism to do that. So he's just one of those guys who I think is worth taking a flyer on. The Eagles linebacking room is already not great, so
Right.
I don't have a problem with them trying to take a chance on someone who can cover someone and take up space and like make have good pursuit angles and try and like be an athlete out there on the field.
Right. Definitely at
So
that position too. At linebacker, they're not going to get taken most of the time very high, and being able to have a project at that position is not the craziest thing. And also this linebacker class, as for those that are listening, if you've done your homework, the linebacker class is not very good this year. There's a significant drop off after the first couple guys. Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M is probably going to be the first linebacker off the board.
Right.
Not in the first round. They'll probably late second, maybe third rounder is where I've seen a lot of people have him.
A lot of mocks have the Eagles picking him at like 50 or 50,
right.
53, so, one of our picks. So
second, third round. Second is probably the highest, later second. But after him, it's kind of like a big drop off. A lot of people have Cedric Gray that we'll hear about later in this episode from me. But the linebacker class is not very deep at all. So to your point, having a guy like that, he could be a riser, be a big sleeper. He could end up having to start because of injuries, and then we see that he's a lot better than what he was projected. So definitely interesting.
Yeah. And another, just to talk more about his athleticism, I'm sure people have seen the little graphic. It's called the RAS score, or the RAS score. It has like a little bomb on it. It kind of showcases like where players rank in terms of like a bunch of different drills and combine related like things, like the 40, the broad jump, vertical, shuttle, all that. And for Trevin Wallace, as of April 3rd, his RAS score was a 933 out of 10. He got a 933, which ranks 190th out of 2,800 linebackers from 1987 to 2004. That's Ken Lee Platt is the guy who tweeted that out, who like does all the RAS scores, RAS scores, however you pronounce it. So yeah, just a good athlete overall. I think he's someone who, put in the right system, asked to do certain things, can make plays for a team. So
definitely. Yeah. And I just looking here too, 5.5 sacks and an interception. So to what you were saying, obviously he has athleticism, he's fast, can get to the quarterback, but a lot of teams want, coverage linebackers too. And so, you see sometimes with corners, they either, have a bunch of interceptions or they have like one or none. So a linebacker having at least an interception is, he showed at least that he can cover decently and stuff like that. So that's definitely huge.
Yeah, that's a good point. On that play where he got that interception, I've seen the clip. Like it just shows like the natural ability he has as an athlete. Like it's very natural for him to like go out there and make a play like that. It's not like he's struggling to do things. But yeah, that's all I got on him. You got another? That may be it for sleepers for me, honestly, unless you got something.
Yeah, those two. I mean, there's definitely other guys that could fall. Those were the two that were like stand out for me. That definitely I know people are not really talking about as much. Quantez, they were talking about his story in general, just because that's kind of a wild, crazy story. But as far as his film and teams really trying to find him, it wasn't a lot of reports on that. But now I guess I saw here real quick when you were talking about Trevin, he's getting visits or requests from all 32 teams, so he's at least starting to get on some people's radars, but it's still going to be a guy that goes later. But yeah, that's going to be it for me for my sleepers.
Yeah but let's transition then to our 7th-round mock draft, and
let's get it going.
We'll talk about that. Yeah, but Okay, you wanna run through yours first?
Sure. So yeah, as we mentioned at the beginning, we both did a 7 round mock for our teams. Just PFF simulated, chose the best player and position for the
Yeah.
pick, and so in the first round, there was a mixture of wide receiver, corner, and offensive lineman. But currently, as I've talked about before, the Steelers don't have anybody snapping the ball to either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Graham Barton and Jackson Powers Johnson were there for the Steelers to take at 20. I chose to draft Graham Barton. Um, at the beginning of the draft process, after the Super Bowl and everything, a lot of people were really high on, Jackson Powers Johnson. Zach Frazier was kind of like a second, third guy, but everyone was talking about him. But as we're getting close to the draft, we're kind of seeing both those guys are kind of seen as day two dudes. A lot of, Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, Mel Kiper Jr., Field Yates, they're all saying kind of, as the draft is getting closer, those guys are probably going to go day two. But one guy that is, because of his versatility, that's probably going to still go on day one is Graham Barton. And so that's just simply because he's played, tackle, he's played center, and he can play guard. And at his pro day, he worked out as a center and a guard. And he did, amazing, had all the numbers that you want to see there, showed his athleticism. And so definitely for the Steelers, for our situation right now, like I said, we need a center, but having a guy that if someone else goes down, that he can go and play guard or tackle is huge. That's always going to be something that teams covet in a guy. And so just can't pass that up. He's the number one lineman on my board, at least when I'm looking at guys. And so couldn't pass that up.
Nice. You wanna just run through all of yours? You wanna go? Should we go pick for pick?
Let's go pick for pick. Yeah.
Okay, bet. Yeah. So with my mock, I was kind of hoping that it would be the board would fall in a way where a corner or an edge would be there that I like and the Eagles might like, and it did end up falling that way. And the player I went with my first pick was Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Just a really good athletic player who can play on the outside and just, basically fit in any scheme and make great plays.
Great press corner.
Exactly. Those Bama DBs are, taught by the best under Nick Saban and can play in basically any scheme. So, you see the success of like a Patrick Surtain, not comparing him to him. I'm just saying
right. No,
Minkah Fitzpatrick, any sort of like Bama DB who has the tools and that mindset can make plays. And I think recently, I want to say I saw a tweet saying that the Eagles met with him pre-draft and they met with him at the combine, and now they had a top 30 visit with Kool-Aid. So I think that's a player they definitely have on their radar. Yeah. So if he's there at 22, I think the Eagles will take him. Or, Howie Roseman isn't afraid to trade up for a guy that he likes. He did it for Devontae Smith and he did it for Jalen Carter. So Kool-Aid's kind of falling, maybe gets into the teens. I could see a trade up for him or a different corner that we like. But yeah, that was my first pick there.
Last of the Nick Saban era, he was very obviously involved with the defense at Bama, and so him and Terrion Arnold, the last of the DBs there. I know obviously there'll be some guys that come out next year that were still taught by him, but for this draft at least. But him and Terrion Arnold, man, there is a lot. Obviously, you see a lot of prospect fatigue, they call it. You're seeing that with Marvin Harrison Jr. right now, some of the top tackles. But Kool-Aid is another guy that you're kind of seeing that with. He's been on the scene there at Bama with Nick Saban for 4 years. And so it's like, people are kind of there. He talked about to be the top corner at the beginning of the college season. And now you kind of see that, Quinyon Mitchell and Terrion Arnold kind of have taken those top spots. But don't get it twisted. This dude, he's the real deal. He's a guy that's a great press corner, very aggressive. And so he's gonna be a week 1 starter for sure. Whoever gets him. So Quignon and Terrion are taken. He's a great CB3 for me off the board. So great pick for you guys there. So the Steelers' next pick is going to be at 51. Again, there is not all the top linemen, but some linemen there, wide receiver, corners, some edges. But for me, the Steelers, as I've talked about before as well, we still don't have a wide receiver 2. We've had some free agent additions in Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins via Eagles, obviously. But those are all wide receiver 3 to 4 guys. And so right now, George is just the sole weapon, as I'm sure that he's happy to be. But we need guys to take pressure off of him. And so we don't have a wide receiver 2. We kind of felt like, as fans and people, that are covering the Steelers, that there would be some type of trade. Obviously, we've heard about Brandon Ayuk and things of that nature. Possibly T. Higgins now as of yesterday. But, we haven't seen anything. I don't expect anything to happen before the draft. So for me, I'm going to go wide receiver, and Ricky Pearsall, Florida. He was there. Dude can run every single route, ran 4.4, jumped 40 in his vertical. Extremely athletic dude. He was at Arizona State when Herm Edwards was there, when Jaden Daniels was there as well. So got to be coached under Herm, got to play with Jaden, and then showed that he can do the same thing in the SEC. That's definitely a dude that will be able to take plenty of attention away from George. A lot of DBs might sleep on his speed and his suddenness, because he's kind of like I guess you would call a lazy route runner. He kind of acts as if he's not, moving that fast, so he can set up his routes. I really like that when I watch this film. He sets up his routes very well. And the dude, he's fearless, because there's certain plays when you watch his film, he's going over the middle, and you could tell he has no, care in the world about who's coming to hit him. He's just focused on attacking the ball. And that's what you love to see, obviously, wide receiver not worried about that hit coming, and securing the ball. And he does all those things. So definitely went with him for that second pick.
Yeah, no, that's a good player. You saw the clip going around of him working out with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and he did not look any less athletic or have any worse footwork than those two, and those are some of the top receivers in the league. So
exactly.
Yeah, I like that pick. So then for the Eagles at 50, I was kind of leaning towards an edge. If the board was kind of falling that way, I was kind of hoping there was an edge there. But I also felt like in this receiver class, there were receivers that could really be impactful that were there in the second round. So with the 50th pick, I took Jalen Polk, the receiver from Washington.
Okay.
And he's not like the best route runner. He's not like a guy who's going to win on every single play and get open right away. But in terms of like a guy who is going to go and like beat someone one-on-one just because he wants to, and is going to like will his way to catching the ball, he's going to use his hands. He's not going to use his body. He's going to like fight for it and try and, fight. You just see him fighting on every play. In terms of run blocking too, he's one of the better receivers and who's going to get physical and actually try and block someone. So that's just a dog you want on your team.
100%.
And I like what I've seen from him on film. 37.5-inch vert, 10-inch broad. His hand, he has a 9.75 hand size, which is like up there in terms of like the percentile of like receivers. So just like a big body dude who is going to go up and make plays. 6'1", 203, and that's what I went with. Big 50 there. How do you?
Great
like
pick.
that pick?
Yeah, definitely. And just because, at Washington, for those that maybe didn't watch their games, they had a wide receiver trio. You hear about people having a two-headed monster at running back, three-headed. They had a serious,
Right.
wide receiver ones, excuse me, at their receiver position. And so, obviously, we know about Rome Odunze. He's going to be probably a top 5, top 8 pick. And so that was their wide receiver 1A. But, he was wide receiver 1B, and they had a third guy in Jalen McMillan. He went down. So they obviously had to kind of pick up the slack, not having that third guy. And so he had, over 1,000 yards, just like Rome did. And so definitely a dude that, he's going to be easily a wide receiver 2 or 3 for a team, and could, depending on how the season goes, get into that wide receiver 2 spot. So I think that's a great pick for you guys. Obviously, you guys already have, AJ and Devontae, but, you guys have still kind of been looking for that third wide receiver, and he's already been in a situation where there was 3 of them. So I think, he's not going to have any issues with having to share the ball or whatever the case may be with that. He's kind of already been in that situation. So I feel like that's a perfect situation for him to go into, really.
Yeah, for sure.
So for our next pick, it's going to be in the 3rd round. We have 2 third-round picks. The first one is at 84. For the Steelers, I went with corner because right now, obviously we hit on Joey Porter Jr. last year at 32. Right away, you could tell in camp that he was, a lot farther along than most rookies. Ends up having 1 interception. Did very well in coverage. But we were looking for, his running mate. We had Patrick Peterson opposite of him most of the season, and you can just kind of tell, obviously, all respect to P2, but he slowed down, the older guy, ended up moving him to safety. And then we obviously let him go at the end of the season. And so that spot was, open. We let Levi Wallace go. That was kind of in that CB2, CB3 conversation as well. But then we get Deontay Jackson in the Johnson trade with Carolina, and so definitely a very solid CB2 as long as he can stay healthy. But can see if we could possibly move him into the slot. And so if that happens, my pick would be Cam Hart from Notre Dame. 6'3", 215 pounds. Dude he's a long corner, just like Joey Porter, but JPJ is more of a press corner, man corner, and Cam Hart is, from what I've seen in his film, he's a lot better in zone coverage. And so having that versatility is really important, especially because the Steelers, as I've mentioned before, when it comes to certain positions, we don't like to have the same type of guy. For example, having George Pickens, a bigger receiver, he's going to be aggressive at the catch point. We're kind of going to want to go a smaller but faster receiver on the other side. We're not going to want to have 2 of the same. And so already having Joey Porter being the man guy, we got to have our zone corner. And I feel like Cam Hart, he'll fit in, great with the Steelers. He was a guy that last year coming into this college season, everyone thought he was going to be, CB1 or 2, had some injuries. Tape wasn't as good as it was in 2022, but I definitely feel like, bringing him along the way the Steelers bring along rookie players, he'll be a great, CB2 or CB3 for us.
Yeah, I like that. He has good traits. 6'3" is a good size, 39.5-inch vert, and
right.
10-10 broad jump are all good athletic things you want to bring.
Right. And at that size too, people don't understand, being a taller guy and having you're playing football backwards and you're going against the fastest dudes on the planet. And so being a taller guy, and being athletic is huge. And that's what's going to make him, have a big role in our defense if we do choose to select him.
Yeah. And the grades are good for him too. He's basically in the 80, 85 or so or better percentile in almost every stable metric. So definitely a good cover corner for y'all there. With the next Eagles pick, this is 53. This is this is another pick where I wouldn't have been surprised with any position that the Eagles would go with here because we have a good amount of needs. But I went with the safety Javon Bullard from Georgia,
Yes, sir.
and yeah, he's a guy who can not only play well, who plays well deep. He can also play in the slot, which I like a lot. We need that versatility. If we're not going to get like a Cooper DeJean, we need someone who can
Right.
just get on the field and make plays for us where it's needed.
Definitely.
You've heard my concerns with Avonte Maddox in his injuries, and Sidney what's his name? Why am I bringing? Oh, Sidney Brown. Coming off the ACL,
Right.
that's a concern. So that secondary needs all the help it can get, and Javon Bullard is a guy that I think can make plays for the Eagles back there. 96th percentile coverage grade at safety, 98th percentile coverage grade in the slot.
Okay.
And he had the 100th percentile in terms of like forced incompletion percentage. So just a dude who's making plays all over the field in terms of coverage, and that's good enough for me. 4.47 40, and has like a dog mentality. When you watch his film, he's going to come down and attack and try and make plays when he can. That's all you can really
100%.
ask for. Kind of,
right.
Not a good comparison in terms of like skill set, but just kind of that look and mental of a CJ Gardner Johnson, someone who's going to try
Right.
and be
Try
that
to do everything.
dog. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. And then, as I said, the Steelers we have 2 third-round picks this year. So the next pick is at 98. I feel like got 2 big needs off the board in wide receiver and corner. So with this, second, third-round pick, you can go anywhere from adding to the linebacker room, maybe getting an edge rusher, a D tackle. But I chose to go safety, and I know we did pick up Deshaun Elliott from the Dolphins, and he's probably going to be a starter. But having someone that maybe could be the third safety. We did do a 3 safety set last year, but I kind of want Minka to go back to his free, safety role, just being able to be that guy in the background, be the ball hawk that he is, not always having to worry about to come up in the box, and maybe, Deshaun Elliott, who is better at, coming off of blitzes, being in the box. He's not as great in coverage like Minka is. So having him be the box safety and then having a true safety with Minka would be a big thing for the Steelers this season. And so I chose Dadrian Taylor Demerson from Texas Tech. 5'10", 197 pounds. Arm length was 31. Ran a 4.41. So, definitely a faster guy. He's a smaller safety, obviously, at 5'10", but a guy who is very aggressive in the run game. So I like that. Watching some of his film, a lot of his traits are like just being in the box, coming down in the box. But he did show a lot of coverage skills, and always want to have a safety that's good at in coverage. And so I feel like him and Minka being in the coverage, and then having Deshaun coming into the box so we can do blitzes and doing that 3 safety look, kind of what we did at the beginning of last season. I kind of like that for us. So I kind of took, best player available with that 3rd pick. And I think Dadrian would be a great asset for the Steelers.
Nice. Yeah. With the now going into the 4th round for the Eagles here, at pick 120. I think at this point I was just kind of trying to see if I could find some value. See who was out there, see who could make an impact, or be a good role player for the Eagles. And the player I went with was the running back from Notre Dame, Audric Estime, or however you pronounce it. He was the 3rd highest graded running back per PFF last season. Has decent, stable metric grades. Just really not fell off people's boards, but kind of fell down boards when he ran a 4.7 40, which is not ideal for a NFL running back. But in terms of just, playing in the scheme that fits him and making plays, I think he is someone who can, take some of the load off for Saquon and help us out in terms of like getting short yardage runs and just doing what's asked of him. Being a better pass blocker would definitely help his ability to like get on the field. But I think he's a good enough player, and did enough this past season to see if he can make an impact on the Eagles. So that was my thought process there with that pick.
And as I've said, you don't always want to have the same type of player at a position. So having another, extremely athletic, fast guy right behind Saquon is like, is he kind of going to see the field? He might see the field, obviously, when Saquon goes out to get a breather. But if he's kind of the same type of back, it's not, you know what I mean? But, estimate he is, he doesn't have the speed, but he's a big dude. When you watch a lot of his games at Notre Dame, he just forces a lot of missed tackles. And so, maybe he's just the goal line guy. I mean, obviously Saquon is still a bigger back in himself, so he could obviously do that too. But having a guy that can do that is definitely a good, compliment to Saquon's game. So I feel like that's a decent pick for you guys. At that spot.
He was decent as a receiving back too. So definitely someone we could throw the rock to. But yeah,
right. The production is there. So
yeah.
So now Steelers are in the 4th round as well. Our pick is 119. And at this point, I'm, going based off of not, the needs kind of have been kind of met. I'm going based off of just best player available at this point. So that's what I chose to do from here on. And so I went with a linebacker. We did pick up Patrick Queen from the Ravens. We have a Landon Roberts coming back. As I've talked about, Cole Holcomb, he, is coming back from a pretty bad knee injury. Not sure if he's going to be ready for the beginning of the season. And then we had Quan Alexander, who, tore his Achilles, and he just, showed on Instagram a couple of days ago, I think it was, that he's starting his workout. So he's probably not going to sign with the team until after the draft. And even if he does sign with us, I don't think he'd be ready either. So right now, just having Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts, I want to have kind of a decent rotational piece, because the guys that we have at depth pieces right now are kind of shown who they're going to be. And so I went with Cedric Gray, North Carolina, 6'3", 235, had 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. Dude is extremely athletic for that size. Every year, except for the COVID year, except for 2020, he recorded an interception. So last season he had 1, and 22 and 21 he had 2 interceptions. So this is a dude that plays obviously well in coverage, and obviously, as we talked about, certain corners don't even have interceptions sometimes. And being a bigger guy playing linebacker, you're not always catching the ball. So showing that when you have that opportunity to pick the ball off, that you're actually capitalizing on it is huge, obviously. So he's a guy that, like I said, the linebacker class isn't the greatest, but he's obviously in that range where, you definitely could take him in the 4th round and see him have some production on the field. So I went with Cedric Gray.
Yeah. We talked about him a little bit on the last podcast because he was one of your picks, and I mentioned that in terms of his coverage grade, or not his coverage grade, his grade when he is in the box is in the 99th percentile. And, at the end of the day, if your linebackers can play well in the box and do what's asked of a linebacker, that's a good thing. So
exactly.
There's other things I'm sure he can get better at, but if he's just going to be a linebacker for y'all and play linebacker, and he is that good at it, then that's a good pick, and will be
and he's not going to have to come in and play day one. Like I said, we at least have 2 very capable starters already with Patrick and Landon, but I always want to have those rotational pieces. And I think obviously learning and seeing them, and if Cole and we end up signing Quan back, that's a great linebacker room. So having a fresh rookie that can learn and maybe become a starter in a year or two, that's definitely some of the things that, Mike Tomlin looks at. So,
yeah. So with the next pick for the Eagles, this was in round 5, pick 161. I also went with a linebacker, which is, I think at the time he was one of the better players available, but also a big need for us. And I went with Michael Barrett, the linebacker from Michigan. He is a guy who graded well last year. He was, I want to say, he was second in pass rush grade per PFF, which is good to see. A linebacker who can make plays rushing the passer was a good thing to have. He doesn't necessarily grade well in other things in terms of like the stable metrics. His box grade compared to Cedric Gray is in the 77th percentile, but he's in the 93rd percentile in terms of slot grade, which is good. But yeah, he's just a good. I want to say like he's just like a good football player. He's just someone who has a good feel for the game and can blitz and make plays and get after the quarterback. And if you can do those things, I think that's an adequate piece for an Eagles linebacking core who's lacking all of that pretty much. So yeah, I'll take it. Yeah.
Okay. We do not have a 5th round pick, so the next pick for us is going to be round 6 at 178. Again, from round 4 on, I'm doing the best player available, and so as we kind of talked off air, I've kind of been hearing that there's a possibility that we don't pick up Najee Harris's 5th year option, or we might trade him, if that's possible. And so I went with a running back. Kind of talks are that Jalen would be our starter, so having someone behind him other than Cordell Patterson, who's probably going to be the main returner. Obviously he can still play running back, but probably would be the 3rd guy. So wanting to have a either a free agent pickup or a late draft pick at running back is probably where the Steelers would go. And so I went with Dylan Johnson from Washington. 6 feet, 218 pounds. Previously played at Mississippi State. He had 3 seasons at Mississippi State. Production there wasn't the greatest. So assuming that he was RB2 there, his first year there, COVID year, 225 yards, then 21 and 22 only had 400, 4 touchdowns each year. This year, just under 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, and averaged 5.1 yards a game. So this year he really turned up. As I can see, stats went crazy for him. He also played hurt at the end of the season. He was having ankle issues. I remember he went out the Texas game multiple times, and they kept saying, they're going to win this game. We don't want to mess him up for, the national championship game. But he didn't care. He was going back in the game every time, getting spatted up. I'm sure all the other stuff that happens during those situations. But, dude is just a one cutback. He doesn't have elite speed, but he has a second gear. He runs very well between the tackles, and he's also a guy that was really good receiving coming out the backfield as well. So he's basically a do-it-all back, different type of back than Jalen Warren as well. So I feel like that'd be a really good tandem, just like how Najee and Jalen are right now. So that was my pick in round 6.
Yeah, good pick. He ranked 32nd in yards after contact, which is good. And he's in the 98th percentile in gap grade and 96th in zone grade. So Arthur Smith can cook up some stuff for him, and he'll be able to execute with no problem.
100%.
So I like that. The next pick for the Eagles was we have 3 5th round picks, which I'm sure knowing how it goes, man, these are going to be traded. These last few rounds is when he really likes to cook and mess around and
Right.
try and get future picks or take some flyers. Like Jordan Mailata was I think a 6th or 7th round pick.
Yeah.
Just one of those things he likes to do. But I went with a safety, and I got Bo Braid out of Maryland. He is a 6', 203. He is someone who is good at tackling, wants to like actually make a tackle, and is someone that I like film wise. Like, you love to see safeties come down and like make plays in the run game. Covering is one thing, and that's more important. But if you can make plays in the run game, that's going to show up on film, and he's one of those players who does that. He was in the 89th percentile in run stop percentage, and then at the same time, he was in the 90th percentile in coverage grade at safety, and 92nd in forced incompletion percentage. So,
Okay.
just making plays all over the field. I think that's a good value pick in the 5th round. A safety that can help out this Eagles team and make some plays.
Right.
Yeah.
And then our last pick in round 6, we have two round 6 picks. It's 195. And so I know a lot of mock drafts I see is taking a defensive tackle kind of in the earlier rounds, and I don't really agree with that just because of our main needs. And I feel like with Cam Hayward coming back healthy, I know he's on the older side, but he didn't even get to play healthy last season. We hit on our 2nd round pick in Keanu Benton from Wisconsin. He was a great addition. So just having depth at this point, not really going with like a superstar at the position. And so I went with Zion Logu. Sorry if I butchered that. Out of Georgia. 6'5", 310 pounds. The stats aren't there. You only recorded half a sack and 17 tackles. But, bigger guy. We love our bigger D tackles and linemen. Cam Hayward himself is 6'5" as well, and so this would be kind of like a depth piece, like I said, but also just a project to see if when Cam retires, if he can come into that spot with Keanu Benton. So he'd probably just be a rotational piece, kind of just watching just to see how things are done. But bigger guy. A lot of his pass game is like bull, or pass rushing, I should say, is bull rushing. So just he needs to kind of just work on other packages, not just going to one move, having a plethora of packages that he can go to. And so that was my last pick for the Steelers.
Nice. I like that. With the 172nd pick in the 5th round, I went with a center. Not necessarily a Kelsey replacement, but this is one of those guys that I talked about earlier who had the really quick short shuttle. Tanner Bortolini, I believe is how you pronounce it, from Wisconsin. He's only 6'4", doesn't have long arms, but 4'9", 40, 4'9", 40, 4'2", short shuttle, 32-inch vert. All of those are elite for a offensive lineman. Those are good percentages to be in. Good athletic scores there. He kind of gets bullied because he's not like the biggest guy out there, and you see some of the lack of strength and length when he's trying to block. But
right,
for someone who can move the way he does and be athletic as he is, with the right coaching, maybe in the right scheme, I think it's worth taking a flyer on a guy like that.
Definitely. And
he was in the 93rd percentile in run block grade in man and gap schemes. So that's good enough for me for a late 5th round pick. To try and
developmental guy.
Yeah, developmental guy. Add some depth to the Eagles O-line room, who that got kind of diminished over the offseason. So
right.
Yeah. And then the last pick for the Eagles here in the 6th round, I went with a defensive tackle out of Illinois, Keith Randolph Jr. 6'4", 296. Just someone that has like a high motor is just gonna, give effort and try and do the best that he can. He doesn't like necessarily grade all that well. He's solid in most things in the 80th percentile ish for a lot of stable metrics. But someone who's gonna try hard and be violent and make plays, I think is a solid pick there. So that was my last pick. Yeah. So per PFF, I got a B plus overall in my my mock draft for the Eagles, and Brock got a B. So I think
they're a lot better than last time.
Yeah, I think we did pretty well here. If we see some of these picks for our teams, we wouldn't be too upset. So
not at all.
Yeah. So yeah, that was fun. I think next week we'll probably do another mock or something and see
try to do the first round maybe.
Yeah,
or try to do a full first round for every team and see how close we can get.
We'll do
actual
a little friendly competition. See how that goes. But yeah, let's transition now to our grinds our gears segment. If you're ready.
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
But okay, you want to kick it off here? You got some on deck?
Yeah, man. So what really grinds my gears is every year, and it could be close to the draft like we are now, or it could just be during the season when it happens to be, trades or picking up free agents, whatever it is. You always are going to see, in your fan base on Twitter, fans saying things like, the Steelers would never do this. They would never get this guy. There's no way we can get Brandon Ayuk,
Right.
Or there's no way this guy would fall in the draft. This guy would never fall. And it's like, most of these people are not, tapped into any type of film, haven't watched guys, and they're just getting their information when they wake up in the morning. Excuse me, and they're just watching and seeing kind of who the popular guys are. And so having those takes, it's upsetting. It's like you don't even know what you're talking about, but you're going to get on a social media platform and argue with the people who are doing this is their life 24/7. They're up at 5 a.m. sometimes, until 5 a.m. sometimes, making a big board, watching film. So, and they could be wrong too. They're not, subject to criticism, but I'm going to trust that and maybe my own, research that I've done and analysis over, the people who haven't really done the work. So I've seen, guys say, I don't know why would we even be looking into the Brandon Ayuk. That's never going to happen. But it's like, okay, you see crazy trades all the time. We see on draft night, you guys get AJ Brown.
Right.
We're seeing now what Omar Khan is doing for the Steelers. No one ever thought that we would not go into this season with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. That was the plan. And usually when the Steelers say they're going to do that's what the plan is. Yeah. Okay, we trade Kenny Pickett. We trade away Deontay Johnson. Like, this is not even the same Steelers whatsoever, the way we go about doing things. And if you're watching that, you should obviously be excited about that, but you should see it and recognize that. So for me, it's just like this time of year, it's like everything is negative. There's no way we're going to get this first round. There's no way we're going to get this top corner. It's like, first of all, man, let's be a little bit. Let's say we want these guys to get picked up by the Steelers, but it's just always negativity around this time. So I really have to, scroll through a lot and mute certain words because it's always like fall, never. We can't get this guy. So that's just what gets under my skin around this time.
Yeah. It is funny. We no one ever has had a perfect mock draft, but it's just it is annoying to always see like people do fall and we don't know why. Like players fall all the time. Players that you didn't think were going to be there are there, and you don't know what's going to happen. Draft. So there's no reason to
be so negative. And also we don't, even the people who are doing the work, like I say, this is their life 24/7. There's times in drafts where, I'll go back to, Jalen Strong, ASU. He was supposed to be a first round pick, and it came out that he had, a hand injury that he hid, and that ended up making him slide to the third round. Nobody even knew that in real time. That happened like on draft night. I think it was Daniel Jeremiah that said, we're seeing here that he had a fracture in his hand that he hid, and that's why we're seeing that he's sliding. There's stuff like that that's going to happen every year, and then you end up getting your guy or you end up losing a guy because those things happen. So nobody really knows what's going to go on, and so to be negative and be like, 100% I know this is not going to happen when you haven't done the work to even have a conversation about that is the thing that's just like, all right,
Yeah. Like what was it? 2 years ago, not Nolan Smith, the Kobe Dean was supposed to, be a late first round pick, maybe a second round pick. He ended up falling a ton last year for the Eagles. People thought they were going to take Nolan Smith with their first round pick, but they ended up being able to get Jalen Carter because he fell, and then still got Nolan Smith later. So we don't know. So yeah, I understand, and I feel you on that. My grind my gear segment it's not something that I'm really passionate about. I just kind of had to think of one, but I don't know how you feel about it. I personally don't love that, at least this year, and it seems like every year it's less and less, that guys don't want to go to the draft anymore. It seems like every year, maybe since COVID, it's kind of not really been a priority, but I just feel like if you're a top dude and you think you're that guy, go to the draft, man. Go take a picture with Goodell. Like, that's like an iconic moment. It's going to be in history. Like, you walking across that stage with your jersey, and I know it's in Detroit, and that may not be, maybe that's part of the reason people don't want to go to Detroit. And I have nothing against Detroit, never been there really outside the airport, but like only 13 players that are right now are confirmed to attend the draft. And, I just feel like you're afraid to compete if you don't want to fucking walk across that stage and be there at draft night. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's just one thing. It's like, man, why not? If me personally, if I was like afraid, maybe that in my gut, like, I don't know if I'm gonna be a first round pick for sure. Maybe that would have some hesitation. But you're like, I'm that dude. I know I'm gonna go top 15. Why not? So.
Yeah, no, definitely like a Will Levis situation where he definitely thought he was gonna go, and like he's there, and like you could tell obviously he's upset and everything, and then when he goes right after Joey Porter Jr. the next day at 33, and you can tell he's very passionate and everything like that, but obviously that hurt him, and we even saw when Lamar, he didn't go till the last pick, and so you can tell when sometimes you feel like you're supposed to go in the first, and then like it's kind of embarrassing to some and hurts their pride to see that didn't happen. I know for Joey Porter Jr., he thought that we were gonna trade up for him, and we ended up going with Broderick, and so he's crying with his pops because he wanted to be a first round pick, and then we ended up getting, obviously if the Dolphins don't have the stuff that happened with them, that 32nd pick would have been Joey Porter Jr. He would have ended up being a first round pick at the end of the draft, but just ends up going the next day. So for me, I can see that side of it. But yeah, if you know you're a lock, why not? And so I did see the list. It's most of the quarterbacks, obviously the wide receivers. I saw Brock Bowers. He didn't request to be there, or accept to be there, I should say. And those times it could just be like they want to do a family thing, and I can understand that. To your point, though, that is iconic. To every kid who had aspirations of going to the league wants to walk across that stage and see the fans, shake the commissioner's hand. But I think when you see that, it's certain dudes who just want to be with their family, and so maybe that's just what they chose to do. But I can see what you mean by that. If you're going to be top 5, why not? But being with family and being able to have everybody there, because I know I saw a tweet the other day where some people were like, well, yeah, they still have to pay for the plane ticket, and someone had replied to them saying, well, they know you're going to be rich anyway, so you should be able to cover that after the contract. But it's like, if you have like a big family and you want to have like 40 people there, ain't nobody paying all those plane tickets to be there. You know what I mean? And then if you
Yeah.
say like, well, 17 or a random number 21 people can be there, then it's like, all right, what about those other people though that want to be there with you, who you might still be close with? So I can kind of understand both sides. And some people just want to be like, all right, we're gonna rent out Airbnb, or if you have a big enough crib for everybody to come and be there with you, then that's cool too. So
Yeah. It's not something I really care about like that, but I feel like it should be more of a priority for these guys. You
right,
should want to be there, but no big deal. It is what it
yeah,
is.
definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, that does it for this week of the Steelbirds podcast. Follow us on our socials, Steelbirds Podcast on Instagram. Follow both of us
Yes,
on
sir.
Twitter and IG at It's Boy CK, at Brock IV _IV. And catch us next week. And yeah, draft's coming
Till next
soon.
time.
Let's get excited.
Get rolling.
All right. Peace.
Peace.